acre feet, so water out there will cost us about $150 for, say, 6 acre feet. You're not supposed to ask questions. And, well, an acre foot of water is for, you put water, let's see, how would that go? That's my mathematics here. It's an acre with so much water put over the full acre. Foot of water on an acre. If you just imagine 1 acre a foot deep in water. And yeah, the water, like we're one in North Gila, it's one of the older areas, districts. Our water is, we get 5 acre feet for about $55. So water in Yuma, when you really look at it versus other areas that are in the projects, is very cheap no matter where. If you go to the Phoenix area, water can cost you $300 or more. And in San Joaquin and places like that, but it still costs. Our problem is here, our water is not necessarily a problem, but it's just the way that the rent in the Phoenix area and those areas is way lower than, because the water cost. And here, the water costs are not very expensive, but the rent is through the roof. This ground right here, you're in what we call the South Gila Valley now. And that is determined because the Gila River is just north of us here, about say 2 miles, and it's probably a little less than that. But Gila River runs mainly drainage water now at this end, because it's dry in the Welton Mohawk. There's no water in the Gila, so the water that runs on this end is usually mainly drainage water. The rent right here in this valley would run anywhere for single crop produce would be around $650 an acre, and annual rent would be somewhere between $750 and $850, and then the water's on top of that. So in general, everything kind of offsets to where the numbers come out the same. It's just our rents are real high and water cheap. Yeah, it's about renting, how the rentings. And there's some farms, families, like I'm third generation, my son and their kids are 4th and 5th generation. We still are in the farming business. All 3 of the kids are heavily involved in our farming operation. The little pregnant gal that you saw out there, that is my daughter, and she runs all the food safety issues. And then my 2 sons and Clint run the help with the farming operation. And Clint and I are the growers pretty much, and then my son runs all the tractors in the Yuma area, and we have in the trucking business too. So he runs the trucks, and then Blake, my younger son, he runs everything on the east side, on the other side of the mountain, and helps me with all the harvest, because we do custom harvesting also. And but as rent, some families just, the younger generations did not want to farm, so they rent their farms out on a year-round basis. And this ranch right here is Bill Cameron's ranch. He was a contractor, construction, invested in property from San Diego, and then he rents that to like JV farms. So it's different families. The next generation just didn't do it, but the families own the ground, and they just rent them to different companies. Yeah, just turn left in the Circle K. The organic process, he asked about the organic, is a 3-year process from the time that we sign it up, that we cannot put any commercial herbicide, chemicals of any type, or any commercial fertilizers. So what we do is we kind of we solarize it for weed control, and we will actually farm vegetables on it. We farm conventional vegetables on it, but grown organically. We can't sell them as organic yet, but it takes 3 years to do that. Same thing? Yeah, right. No.
Sprinklers, are they used to get started, or?
Usually the sprinklers are a germination for most of the products, but then you see a lot of the big wide beds that we grow spinach and baby mix and different things on. You use sprinklers on the full term of the crop on that. And then we use you'll see them actually use sprinklers on planting wheat, because a lot of the time the ground is pretty wet and hard to work. So we do as minimum amount of work as we can behind the produce to tear it out and plant wheat, and then we'll use the sprinklers to germinate that. But not in all cases. We're coming up on my house, and then we do a rotation with alfalfa around on our farm, because alfalfa gives a kind of a break, and some of this ground's been in produce for 30 some years without a break, and we've started about 10 years ago keeping try to keep about 10% of our acres in hay, and so this piece has been now put in alfalfa. I'm not real popular right now with my neighbors, because you can see there's sheep out there. That's not something that they like very much with food safety concerns. But anyway, I followed the leafy green guidelines, so that's my home there. Yeah.
How many Ks of alfalfa do you have?
We cut alfalfa probably, I would say, 8 times a year, and produce anywhere from 10 to 14 tons an acre. Last year was a very poor year. We had a real high heat early, and it stayed cooler in the spring, and so our yields were down more around the 10 ton. But the year before that, we had some fields that went as much as 14 tons. So weather does make a difference. It's always, you can say it's always hot, but it does some years are hotter than others. We're approaching the mighty Gila River, and that's what separates the North Gila from South Gila. So we're leaving the South Gila Valley, and as we cross the river, we'll enter into North Gila Valley. And North Gila Valley is a very small little area that sits between the mountains and the Colorado River and the Gila River, which is only about 7,000 acres.
That was the Gila River right there.
That was the Gila. Seed, the seed comes pretty much, there's quite a few different seed companies. We have European seed companies, and so most of the seed, but a lot of the vegetable seed is actually grown from our lettuce and some of our broccolis in Corcoran and in that area of the San Joaquin Valley. And actually, that big building that we drove by before we made the turn there on the south side of the road, that's Cicada International there. And Cicada is a huge broccoli, floral, different types of melons and things they grow. And so we grow broccoli and cauliflower seed for them, and have been doing that for 20 some years. And see these big beds here to this side. As you can see the mix of the green leaf and the red leaf, and there's probably chard and different things out there. That's used where the sprinklers stay in that crop from the beginning to the end. Lettuce is planted by seed. It's all coated now. It used to, back in the early days, we just planted naked or whatever seed, and it was tiny little seed. Well, now we coat it with a coating that makes it all the same size, and where we can use these air planters are more efficient that way. And we're pretty seed costs are pretty expensive, so we've done a lot of different things with those setups. We'll do a 3 seed drop, like 2 inches apart, and then skip 6, 7, 8 inches, and then plant 3 more seeds. And because most of this stuff is planted and then we thin it by hand. And something that we've done different this year that is our labor. Something we haven't talked about is labor. And labor is an issue in Yuma, and so about 90% of all the crops, the lettuce and romaine crops and mix, we have used a new electronic thinner, which has some issues still to be worked out, but we've stayed with it through the season. What it does, it's got onboard computers that will pick out the plants. You set what you want, and it will thin it. It sprays. One system sprays AN20. It's a little bit of it's a hot fertilizer mix as to kill the unwanted plants, and then the other ones use a product called AIM, which is a herbicide, and so that is sprayed on that. And these plants can be within about 2 inches apart, but it can spray one plant and skip the other one. And so this technology is something they've been working on for a while, and we've looked at it for a while. When you finally just got to pull the pin and say, well, it's going to be what it is, and that's kind of what we have done, is being somewhat of a forerunner on doing our whole operation as much as we can. Keep going a little further. Pardon me? See that now there is the big bed, and you'll see the different mix with that's romaine and some red leaf and green leaf, and so that is what you'll see in these stores. It's called the artisan lettuces, which is bred that is a little bit smaller, compact, like this stuff you're looking at straight ahead here to the left is that's just artisan romaine. And see, that looks like it's not near ready to harvest, and they are harvesting that with that machine out there right now. And it goes in those little clamshells, they call them, and you can get a red one, each one of them, and we plant them that way for harvest, so that they can harvest each one of those and fill a clamshell as they go with the different products. This ground also to the left that you see is everything's been tore out. It's been harvested. That ground is being prepared for cotton. Pardon me? It's kind of the same thing from February 15th to April 15th, depending on what you want to do. Right, we have a 45-day due to pink bollworm and stuff like that we can't plant.
You get a subsidy on cotton?
Pardon me?
You get a subsidy on cotton?
As we say, subsidies is a bad word. We don't use that anymore. There is some payments on that, but really haven't come into play as much over the last couple of years. This is the old Laguna Schoolhouse. It's our pipe yard now. Basically there, that's where my dad went to school from the 1st grade. And so this is the area that my grandfather, and that, just go to the main road straight ahead. That's Celery, and that's where we're headed right here to watch these. So this is where they came in 1923. We've been here since 23. turn right here.
Was this land naturally level, or did it take a lot of leveling?
Actually, some areas were not as bad as others. Some, some of this ground you'll see is benched, so everything was had to move to create the levels the way they are. But most of the initial fields were very, very small, and they were actually leveled with horses and called a Fresno scraper. You can just pull anywhere, right in front of the house, right there would be fine. Right here, yeah. And this is where my daughter lives. It's nice to have one kid living on the farm. I get to see the grandkids all the time.
What kind of wages do the laborers?
I have 12 grandkids and one more on the way, as you can see, so they're fun. Yeah.
What kind of wages do the laborers make?
Pardon me? Okay, now laborers, you have your general laborers that they will make around in the field $8.25, $8.50, different things. But most crews offer a piece rate, which is in what production that they do in a day. They set that number, what they need in cartons. If they reach that, they can make up to $12 to $14 an hour. And then the H2A workers, that's an expensive way, but that's one of our key ways of getting labor, because anymore, without the H2A, we would really be in trouble, be short of labor. So these laborers are come in, we house them, we feed them, and they're paid $9.50 is on the base of that. But we pay for them from wherever they live, Mexico, South America, wherever, because H2A workers can come from any country other than the United States. Most of them for us come from Mexico, but there is a few crews, I think, from Salvador and places like that. But you do house them, you ship them, they bring them here, and then you house, feed them, and send them home at the end of the season.
And what's their work day? How long?
Work day, usually sun up to sundown.
Do you make any deductions out of their pay for any reason, or you just give it all to them?
I do not pay H2A workers directly because I am not in the harvest business.